The Human Experiment by Dr. Carmichael, Chapter 9, The Emergence of Biological Modern Humans. Surprises and revisions. Question answer. Are we related to Neanderthals? Yes, some of us are. DNA evidence demonstrates that Neanderthals interbred with the ancestors of modern European and East Asian populations. By now, you should be aware that the discovery of fossils evidence for our common ancestry with apes came with a surprise. The human lineage has been characterized by increasing brain size and a dependence on tools, so scientists had expected our earliest ancestor would be a large-brained ape. Instead, Australopithecus afarensis was small-brained but bipedal. The recent discovery of a 3-year-old Afrinus girl suggests that she and her species retained an ancestral ability to climb and swing through trees. Like our nearest ape relatives, Wilford 2006, new research on fossils assigned to the species Orion tugenus has pushed back the date of the evolution of bipedalism to about 6 million years ago. Maya Richmond and Youngers, 2008. The surprises have continued. For a time, some researchers suggested that the robust Australopithecines, classified as a robustus boisel with their larger skulls, might represent the males of the same species as the smaller gracile Australopithecines, A. africanus. Mirroring the gorilla pattern of extreme sexual dimorphism, further research has shown that this is not to be the case, and the robust forms have been reclassified by many as new genus Paranthropus. As new fossils continue to be discovered and new dates become available, existing interpretations are reconsidered and alternative views are evaluated. While details are still being debated, most researchers agree on the broad outlines of human evolution from H. habilis to H. erectus and or H. ergaster to sapiens. Most of the debates about the fossil evidence for this evolutionary sequence involve different interpretations of the relationships and interactions among the various species. This section will mainly provide a summary of some of the most important traits and behaviors attributed to different species, as well as some interpretations based on recent research. While a detailed consideration of all these issues is beyond the scope of this introductory text, students should be able to describe the general evolutionary trend of the genus Homo and discuss the adaptations of the various species. You should also be able to discuss the traits scientists use to define modern humans. Finally, you should be able to discuss the recent African origin of modern humans and our relationship to Neanderthals. Homo habilis. When the Leakeys discovered some of the earliest stone tools at Olduvai Gorge, they first suggested Zingianthropus, Paranthropus boisei, as the toolmaker. Shortly thereafter, however, they discovered a different hominid, Homo habilis, with a proportionally larger brain and lacking the massive chewing apparatus indicated of specialized vegetarian diet, figure 9.1. As a result of these discoveries, for many years, it was widely accepted that the H. habilis and perhaps other early Homo species were the makers of first stone tools. Now we know Australopithecus afarensis used stone tools to process the bones of Erngolites as far back as 3.4 Maya. About 900,000 years before the existence of H. habilis, McFerrin et al. 2010. Nevertheless, H. habilis is identified as the species that marks a turning point in human evolution, in which the members of genus Homo are consistently associated with stone tools and the dietary changes they indicate. H. habilis has a larger brain, 600 to 800 cubic centimeters, cc, than earlier hominins, and the consistent persistence of stone tools implies greater intelligence. Larger brains and habitual tool use become the hallmarks of the human lineage. The stone tools that are found at sites attributed to H. habilis are classified as part of the Oldowan tool tradition, named after the Oldovu Gorge where they were first discovered. Oldowan tools consist of simple, crudely made pebble tools, figure 9.2, and flakes that would seem to be best suited to scavenging. Most of the bones from these sites are the lower limb bones of the ungulates, such as antelope, body parts that have relatively little meat on them. Additionally, none of the Oldowan tools are suitable as projectiles or other weapons that might be capable of taking down an antelope. The impact fractures and cut marks, some of which occur on top of carnivore tooth marks, are more consistent with hominins scavenging carcasses of animals killed by carnivores and breaking open the leg bones to extract the marrow. Binford, 1985. Figure 9.1, the fossil cast. Here, I'll kind of zoom in on that so you can see that. More recent research on the eastern shore of Lake Turkana in Kenya has provided evidence that hominins processed a wide range of animal remains as far back as 1.95 Maya, Braun et al. 2010. Fractured long bones and bones with cut marks indicate that carcasses of hippos, rhinos, crocodiles, turtles, and catfish were being processed with stone tools. That these activities predate the existence of Homo erectus, including H. ergaster, makes H. habilis the most likely candidate for butchering and scavenging behavior exhibited at this site. While scavenging may not seem very glamorous and may not fulfill our expectations of a powerful and dominant human ancestor, it nevertheless seems that hominins were, for many millennia, mainly foraging and scavenging for a living. Importantly, this meant they were not competing directly for food with the many carnivores in their environment, but were nonetheless benefiting from the addition of meat products that were necessary for brain development. Indeed, scavenging may have been primary diet adaptation of hominins well into Homo erectus times. Homo erectus. H. erectus is the first species for which we find fossil remains outside the continent of Africa. The earliest example of H. erectus fossils outside Africa at the site of Dimsy, Georgia, the former Soviet Republic, where the remains date back 1.75 million years. Figure 9.3. Distinctive anatomical traits exhibited by these fossils include an angular cranium that is widest at the base of the skull and has a keel or ridge along the top center line. In a cross section, Homo erectus skulls have gabled outline, like the profile of a barn roof. Another character trait shown in this figure is the prominent brow ridge above the eye sockets. It has been suggested that the expansion of H. erectus out of Africa was a result of the expansion of their range following animal herds because of the increased importance of meat in the diet. Wilford, 2000. Members of the species were larger than early hominids, with brain sizes nearly 1,000 cc, table 9.1. They were also tall and strong. The 12-year-old boy from Lake Turkana was 5 foot 10 inches at the time of his death, and his bones were slender but strong, indicating powerful musculature and very active lifestyle. Increasing amounts of meat in the diet would have been necessary to fuel their larger bodies and brains. I hope you can see that. So here's the picture. Yet the early H. erectus populations were still scavengers, armed only with simple pebble tools, like those used by H. habilis. Some researchers have argued that sites Ambrona and Taralba in Spain indicate that H. erectus populations engaged in cooperative hunting of large game, but this view has been largely discredited. It has also been suggested that H. erectus practiced cannibalism, a contention based largely on the discovery of skulls of Zucaduian, China, from which the bases and faces of the skulls were removed. Recent reanalysis of these fossils has indicated that predation by large extinct hyenas is the most likely explanation for the damage observed on erectus skulls. Boas and Chiokin, 2001. Thus, like their predecessors among the Australopithecines and H. habilis, Homo erectus individuals are among the prey consumed by large carnivores. Eventually, by about 1.4 million years ago, H. erectus developed more complex stone tools referred to as ochlines. But this technology was apparently not the cause of and necessary for the migration out of Africa. As the Demonsi fossils are associated with simpler tools, even the more advanced Ochlin technology lacked tools that could be constructed as hunting weapons. The primary tool type was the hand axe, which could potentially be used for many purposes, but probably not as lethal projectile. Rather, the Ochlin tools seem to have allowed H. erectus to be more efficient at scavenging meat and marrow from carcasses they encountered. Leaving Africa meant moving out of the warm tropics into a temperate zones and a variety of cooler environmental settings. The migration was probably assisted by the ability of the H. erectus populations to control fire. It is not clear whether they were able to generate fire on their own. It is also unclear how far back in time the control of fire can be unequivocally inferred. Nevertheless, fire would have provided several advantages, such as warmth, protection from predators, and heat for cooking. It would also provide light, a way of extending the day, and place around which social groups could interact during the evenings. There are some physiological evidence from fossils brain casts that Homo erectus would have been able to communicate through vocalization. It has also been suggested that the demands of childbirth and child rearing would imply the existence of sexual division of labor. The brain size of the Homo erectus individuals was such that the skulls of their infants would have been too large to pass through the birth canal. This suggests that infants were born before their brains were fully developed, as is the case with modern humans. Like modern humans, infants would be almost helpless during the first couple of years of growth, and this implies a division of labor, in which some members of the group cared for their young, while others foraged and scavenged for food. In such behaviors, we can infer the beginnings of social behavior that becomes increasingly elaborated in later human species. So Homo erectus seems to have controlled fire, produced complex tools, and used them to become a mobile, efficient scavenger, adapting to regions throughout Africa, Asia, and Europe, and possibly benefiting from rudimentary vocal communication and simple social organization. This way of life persisted throughout much of the Old World, largely unchanged for about 1 million years, until the appearance of modern humans. About 700,000 years ago, after some Homo erectus populations had already left Africa, those groups remaining in Africa gave rise to a new species, Homo Heidelbergensis, figure 9.5. After evolving in Africa, H. Heidelbergensis populations also migrated out of Africa, and their fossils have been found in Europe and East Asia. The populations in Europe eventually evolved into Neanderthals, and those remaining in Africa evolved into Homo sapiens. Campbell, et.al., 2006, 313. Thus, Homo Habilis is believed to be the common ancestor of Neanderthals and biological modern humans. Further evidence for and discussion of this conclusion is presented in the video The Last Human Standing, which may be viewed at the link below. I will leave this link, but if you want, you can try and use your phone now. Anatomically, modern human fossils are defined as such because they exhibit such a set of characteristics that sets them off from earlier archaic human populations, such as Neanderthals, figure 9.6. Neanderthals have a low, elongated skull with a prominent bulge or a bun at the rear and a large brow over the eye sockets. Their average cranial capacity was larger than that of modern humans. Although the distribution of the brain sizes measured for both species overlapped considerably. I'll zoom in on that. Sorry about that. Here's some more. This is 9.6. In contrast, modern humans have a flat face lacking the prognathism characteristic of earlier forms. In addition, the skull is rounded with a high cranium and vertical forehead. There are no heavy brow ridges, and the face is smaller and lighter, with a protruding chin. There are behavioral differences as well. Modern humans produced more complex and specialized toolkits than H. erectus or archaic H. sapiens groups such as Neanderthals. Moreover, some researchers suggest that modern humans perceived and adapted to the environment differently than from archaic peoples. For example, archaeologists Bar Yosef has compared the artifacts of Neanderthals and modern humans who lived in the same region of what is now Israel. Based on the source of stone tool raw materials, he concludes that modern humans seem to have been more mobile, exploiting resources that are further away from their home bases and even venturing out into the desert areas that may have been avoided by or unknown to Neanderthals. A similar argument has been made by Paul Bahn, who compared modern modern ridges and that offered good views, providing the opportunity to monitor the movement of game herds and to plan their hunting strategies in response. In contrast, Neanderthals lived at lower elevation sites in caves down in the valleys, where they would have had less advanced warning of approaching game animals. It seems their approach to hunting was more opportunistic, involving less logistical planning. The difference may have conferred only a small advantage to Homo sapiens, but perhaps that was enough. Over time, the Neanderthal populations were displaced into less desirable regions, such as Britain, northern Spain, and northern Germany, and they disappeared altogether about 27,000 years ago. Learning and transmitting the more sophisticated environmental knowledge of modern humans may have been facilitated by symbolic communication. Prehistoric artwork provides physical evidence of their capacity for symbolic communication. It has been suggested that by adding artistic designs to their environment, in rock art, for example, modern humans were identifying important places and generating mnemonic devices or cognitive maps of the landscape, helping them remember the locations of springs and food sources. The ability to conceive of the known landscape and to imagine an unknown world beyond it was long believed to be a distinctly modern human trait. Why? The earliest hominid fossils in Australia are fully modern humans. It was argued that it must have required more complex conceptualization of the Earth to reach such an isolated area. That is, it was necessary to conceive a landmass that was largely out of view and invent boats to cross the straits between Indonesia and Australia. Modern humans were the only land animals in the Southeast Asia to reach Australia. Surely it must have required a special kind of human to do so, or perhaps not. Homo Florescencinus. I can't talk today, guys, I'm sorry. Although not directly related to modern humans, the case of Homo Florescencinus provide an interesting and completely unexpected example of evolutionary diversity within the genus Homo. It was long thought that, like Australia, the islands east of Java were inaccessible to pre-modern humans, but in 1998, researchers working on the island in Flores in Indonesia found deposits containing stone tools dated about 800,000 years old, much older than the first modern humans. The form of the stone tools and the dating of the find implied that Homo erectus had somehow traveled beyond Java and the Wallace Trench, the deep sea trench that separates Java from the eastern islands of the Indonesian archipelago. It seemed like the boats might have been required to accomplish this move. Even more remarkable, however, was the subsequent discovery of skeletons of the humans who made the stone tools. The diminutive skeletons exhibit an unexpected mixture of characteristics in a body standing only 3.5 feet tall. The brain size is about the same as that of a chimpanzee, and the lower jaw lacks a chin. However, the face is a small, delicate, and non-prognathous, like that of the modern humans. Although the cranial capacity is little more than a third the size of the H. erectus, it has a similar shape. The skull is angular with a prominent keel or ridge along the top of the skull, and the widest part of this skull is at the base, 9.8. The hips resemble those of the Australopithecines, and it is clear that the species is bipedal. Stringer, 2004, Dalton, 2005. Here's the cranium. Because of the unique combination of traits, researchers have classified the find as new species of humans, Homo Florescencinus. The press has dubbed them the hobbits because of their small size and apparently long arms. It seems the species evolved from an ancestral population of Homo erectus that somehow reached the island of Flores during a period of lower sea level, perhaps by boat, isolated from the mainland. Over time, the body size was reduced by a process called island dwarfing. The same process seems to have affected the stegodon, the tiny extinct elephants the hobbits hunted. The latest dates for the hobbit skeletons are only 18,000 years ago, which means this small isolated species persisted until well after the time modern humans entered the region. Stringer, 2004. Homo florensis is not part of the lineage of modern humans, but the discovery of this species illustrates at least two significant points. Humans did not need to be modern in order to build boats and cross water barriers, and unexpected evolutionary twists and turns are still being discovered. Out of Africa, certainly, but when? The main question regarding the relationship between modern humans and Neanderthals is the nature of their interactions. How different were they? If they were in competition, did it involve warfare? What was the Neanderthals' contribution to the genetic makeup of modern humans? Most simply, were they capable of interbreeding? This question is central to a well-researched novels in the Clan of the Cave Bear series by John Ohl. The question of the potential for interbreeding was traditionally viewed as central to the debate about which model of human evolution is correct. The two main competing hypotheses or models for the evolution of modern humans are referred to as multi-regional evolution, MRE, and recent African origin, RAO. The multi-regional model recognizes that Homo erectus left Africa about 2 million years ago, spreading throughout Asia and Europe. Then erectus populations evolved into archaic sapiens and eventually Homo sapiens in many regions throughout their range. Therefore, archaic sapiens populations such as Neanderthals would have contributed to a wide range of diversity in modern humans. The retention of some regional clusters of traits could yield what we might today call races. The RAO model is a bit more complicated as two or more migrations out of Africa are identified. Clearly, H. erectus populations left Africa about 2 million years ago, based on the fossils from Dmanisi, and the erectus populations did evolve into other species after leaving Africa, archaic sapiens as well as Homo florensis. However, fully modern sapiens first evolved in East Africa between 150,000 and 200,000 years ago, not throughout Eurasia. After the evolution in East Africa, modern sapiens also left the continent to occupy other environments in what was the second out of Africa migration. As modern sapiens groups moved into areas already occupied by archaic sapiens, forms they outcompeted the earlier forms, first pushing them into marginal habitats and eventually overwhelming them entirely. Two models have different implications for fossil record. If MRE is correct, we should expect to see sequences of traditional fossils in many parts of the Old World, with some very ancient traits retained in modern populations. If RAO is correct, transitional fossils between Erectus and modern sapiens should occur only in Africa, where modern sapiens evolved. In addition, there should be a suite of characteristics that distinguishes all modern humans from all pre-modern forms. The fossil record is somewhat equivocal on these points, with much debate focused on how to interpret the details of key fossil specimens. Perhaps the most promising area of study for providing a definitive answer is the comparison of mitochondrial DNA. Unfortunately, the proponents of MRE model several kinds of recent evidence have converged to offer convincing support for the RAO model. Shipman 2003. Genetic research on modern East African populations has documented the oldest and most diverse lineages known so far. We would expect modern humans to have evolved in the region where the most genetic diversity is present. Because the mitochondrial DNA has had the longest time to accumulate, mutations in that region, and the researchers estimated that the modern human fossils recently discovered at Herdo, Ethiopia, which are dated from 154,000 to 160,000 years ago. Moreover, the fossils accepted as being transitional between archaic and modern sapiens are from Africa, not other parts of the Old World. The other sort of evidence that undermines the MRE model comes from comparison of the Neanderthal DNA with that modern humans. In 1999, Svante Pabo, I can't read that at all, Pabo, and a team from the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Germany made a dramatic breakthrough in the recovery of DNA from Neanderthal fossils. Several studies of Neanderthal DNA done about that time reached the same conclusion that Neanderthals did not contribute to genetics of modern sapiens. In Europe, Wilfred 2000, Harrington 2000, Wade 2006, Shipman 2003. However, only a few years later, Pabo's team found evidence that Neanderthals share between 1 and 4% of their DNA with non-African populations of modern Homo sapiens. In other words, there is now strong evidence for small-scale interbreeding between modern humans and Neanderthals. The most likely occurred in Southwest Asia and Eastern Europe after modern humans left Africa. Sankraman, ETL, 2012. There is even some indication that certain characteristics in modern humans can be traced to Neanderthal genes, such as red hair, prominent brow ridges, rosy cheeks, thick, straight hair, fair skin, and freckles, and the prosperity for autoimmune diseases, among others. So as is often the case in science, answering one question leads to many more, and the picture of our prehistoric past is more complicated than ever. Certainly we are all of African origin, but there seem to have been several out of Africa events, followed by subsequent mixing among the populations, figure 9.9. Modern humans left Africa and replaced the archaic human populations that had preceded them, but they also interbred with them to some small degree. One might consider that this is the mostly out of Africa model. Moreover, the interbreeding now documented among Neanderthal Denisovans Savin, and modern groups argues against the MRO expectation that should be distinct regionally isolated populations analogies to race. I'm so sorry, it's been a day. Here's the map so you guys can read this. It is now estimated that Neanderthal and ancestral human lineages split about 500,000 years ago, before modern sapiens have evolved. According to Paso, the mitochondrial DNA differences between Neanderthals and modern humans suggest they separated. Oh my goodness, I just reread that. They separated from a common ancestor about 400,000 years ago. The estimated timing of the split implies that the common ancestor could be Homo Habilis. I can't pronounce any of these words today. It is also estimated that both the Neanderthal and modern human populations in Europe were very small in number, perhaps fewer than 10,000 individuals. Apparently, all populations of early humans were rather small, and their numbers grew significantly only after the end of the Ice Age. Wade's 2006. This is the end of chapter 9 on Dr. Carmichael's. I am so sorry, guys.